Did you know that Google personalizes many searches by city and Also Ask is the only tool to access live People Also Ask data at city level? Try for free at alsoasked.com.
Tired of SEO guesswork? Quadra's AI agent goes deeper to uncover high-impact optimizations and completes hours of SEO in minutes. Get started now.
I was going to say that SEO with Fat Joe is as peaceful as this, but then the birds are all having fights.
Hi, welcome everyone. I know it's really sunny outside, so thank you for joining us in this slightly warm room. But I'm excited to spend the next 20 minutes talking to you about all things data effectiveness and how we can plan better with our media. So before we get started, just a little bit of kind of housekeeping. Yes, I'm the one stood up here and I'm kind of sharing my insights and my knowledge, but it's just based on kind of client projects and conversations that I've had. Doesn't mean that what I say is the only way to tackle what I'm going to talk about. The second thing is that I do feel like a little bit of an imposter because about 2 years ago, I actually left PPC and moved into a broader strategic role. So unlike lots of the other experts you will have seen, I'm not going to teach you anything new about paid search or how to use that more effectively. Instead, I'm going to think more broadly about how we can use that channel and the data that we have from it. And the final thing is that we're in a tough landscape. We have been for the last few years. There's kind of no getting around it. And so it's all right. We're all doing the best that we can and kind of moving forward within that. And so we are moving from the era of digital to the era of intelligence. Like there's been so many talks on AI and machine learning, you really can't get away from it. And that's because we are moving into this new era of intelligence. And I actually believe that monotone media is making brands bland. So if you look at logos from the last 10 years, they've all got a little bit more simple, a little bit less distinctive. They've all kind of moved a little bit closer together in terms of what they're like. But also every brand, agency partner, advertiser, kind of whoever you are is buying the same reach, same audiences on the same platforms. And what that's meaning is that it's kind of really hard to stand out and do something that's a little bit different. And that's partly because of the delegation of thinking to big tech. So with the rise of kind of more algorithms and more kind of black box solutions across kind of Meta and Google, it's actually meaning that kind of optimization and opportunity is often up to the algorithms as opposed to any kind of human nuance within that. And marketing has been on a pretty similar journey, I would say. And I love that we are taking more from kind of marketing science and theory and all of that sort of stuff. But actually what that's meaning is that we're kind of creating these really like dogmatic situations where it's kind of either or. So you are either the school of thought of Mark Ritson or Byron Sharp. You invest in brand or you invest in performance, you drive penetration or you drive loyalty. When actually in most cases, it's a bit of a combination of both. And there's also a bit of an over-dependency on an AI future. We've all seen, heard, read the posts about the fact that in 10 years' time, we're all going to be redundant because AI will have taken our jobs. But I actually think there's an over-dependency on it because, yes, it's going to help to do a lot of stuff and it's going to develop further, but there always needs to be that human element alongside. And I think this summarizes it nicely in that it's not a race to the bottom. It's actually just a race to the mean because we're all converging kind of into this middle point. And Mark Ritson summed this up beautifully in 2023, where he said that AI will make us all masters of efficiency, but slaves to mediocrity. And the more we automate, the harder it becomes to stand out. So a little bit of audience participation. I'm just going to ask you to raise your hands if you kind of can relate to any of these questions that clients, brands, businesses might be asking you. So how much did that campaign drive or contribute towards business performance? Which metrics should I be looking at to show success? Can you show me how this campaign contributed towards awareness? I don't care about the impact on awareness. Show me the impact on sales. And let's park that demand gen activity. Can we make my current activity more efficient? Anyone getting these questions? Nice. Means you're in the right place for my talk. So good job. And how many of you are coming up against stumbling blocks like this? So again, I'm going to give you some kind of statements. Give me a show of hands. We have some data, but not all of it. Where do we find the other data? We have 2 different data sources. How do we agree on a source of truth? We know some things, but not others. How can we use what we've got? We're fed up of not having the right data. How can we make sure we have it? And the theory shows that awareness works, but I can't convince my client of this. Hands up. Again, lots of you, defo the right place. And this is because I think marketers are facing a nearly constant battle, regardless of your channel, your specialism, your platform that you work in. And that battle is finding the balance between efficiency in platform in the short term and providing a short-term response to the things that we're doing, and long-term effectiveness across them and the impact that our marketing is having. And so when I talk about data isolation, I am talking about kind of keeping data, channels, platforms, whatever it is, separately, so you don't have that holistic view. And when I think about data integration, I'm talking about bringing that data, channels, platforms together. And that doesn't mean you have to do it all with one agency, or you have to do it all in-house, or it all has to sit in the same place. It's just having that overall view of it so that you can create something that's better than the sum of its parts. Because ultimately, integrated, informed data and strategy is crucial for the future of media planning and what we bring to the table. So, why are we in a battle with data isolation, and what is the challenge that we're up against as marketers? So it's no secret that marketing measurement has become more complex in recent years. This is a quick Google search for kind of what you should be tracking in terms of metrics. These articles aren't aligned. They all say something different. There's new ones popping up all the time. There's no kind of golden rule for what you should or shouldn't be measuring. And actually, marketers recognize the problem. So this is from September 2024, but 64% of marketers don't think last click is aligned with how people actually shop. 77% think last click attribution is the easiest but not the best way to track campaigns. 22% of marketers say no one at their company believes in last click. And 30% of marketers trust last click attribution less than they did a year ago. So the problem is pretty clear. And even when we think about kind of measuring long-term effectiveness, again, kind of not being considered enough at the moment. So 31% do effectiveness analysis on an ad hoc basis based on the campaign that's running. Only 13% have ongoing tracking for brand health and effectiveness. And 75% recognize that they need to expand their marketing effectiveness capabilities. And this chart, I think, really summarizes kind of the challenge that we're in at the moment. So this is from Magic Numbers. And actually, it shows that ROAS from platform moves with demand for the category as opposed to the strength of your marketing choices. So although we all use ROAS as our optimization kind of metric of choice most of the time, and we think that that suggests that our marketing channels are working better than others, and so that's where we should be investing, you're actually just investing in category demand. So it's not doing a very good job of kind of proving out what we're delivering from a marketing perspective. And when you see the sheer number of data sources that we might be working with, the challenge is really clear because it's hard to wrangle all of these things into one place to be able to have that kind of single central source of truth, which shows you what your media is doing, what's working, what's not, and how you can optimize that moving forward. And that means collectively we're all a little bit like this, because we're either kind of chasing our tails, constantly looking at what the latest in marketing measurement should be and trying to figure out where we should be, or we're unsure where to start without kind of drowning in the information available because there's so much, there's all these different things we should be doing about and thinking about, and it's kind of too big of a challenge to tackle within that. And this is a quote that I really like, and I've been speaking to a lot of brands about recently from Harvard Business Review, which is that if brands are built over years, why are they measured over quarters? And it's no secret that we've moved towards short-termism, and a lot of it is kind of warranted because of the kind of economic position that we've been in. But actually, we know that consumers take a bit of time to make decisions. We know that if they're not aware, we need to make them aware. We then need to drive them through to consideration, and we then need to drive them through to conversion. And that doesn't happen overnight, over weeks, over months. It could be a really long period to do that. But consumers don't make it easy for us because a funnel kind of doesn't exist, right? People don't linearly go, yeah, I've become aware of that, and now I'm going to consider it, and now I'm going to go on to purchase it. Google coined the messy middle a few years ago, but it's true. People kind of dip in and out. They become aware. They decide they don't want it anymore. They then decide to buy it. They go straight to conversion. Like, it's a whole minefield, and that makes it really difficult for us to prove that a journey exists and prove that our marketing is having an impact on that journey. So it's kind of like this at the moment. And I know I'm just piling on problems, and I do have solutions for all of these things, which I promise we will get to. But it puts us in a really challenging spot as marketers. So why is integrated data so powerful? Why does it lead to more effective media strategy? Why am I up here kind of talking about this as a topic? And in typical kind of strategist kind of point of view, I've done this in three kind of buckets. So the first is that it provides a really holistic audience understanding. So we know that consumers don't move very linearly. They dip in, they dip out, they engage with different platforms, they have different touch points. And actually, if we're only looking at what our audiences are doing on one platform or one element of our activity, it's providing a really siloed point of view. And if we're making optimizations or decisions based on that, we're not considering what they're doing before, what they're doing after, what they might go on to do. And that means that it's really tricky to use that information to make an informed decision. The second is that it allows for strategic alignment and accountability. So too often we set up a strategy, especially in kind of current times, we'll set up a strategy, we'll stick to it, and then the numbers might look a little bit iffy one day, and so we make this really quick, like knee-jerk, short-term reaction and go back to what we were doing before. But actually, if you have this kind of single source of truth, or you can pull all of your data in and you can kind of link it back to the strategic North Star that you have, then this actually means that you can just use the data to check that you're kind of on the right track. Otherwise, you will kind of make these short-term knee-jerk reactions, which inevitably are going to move you away, likely, from what that strategy is. And the third is that ultimately it allows for more accurate effectiveness measurement. So we all exist, and this is like my true belief of what we should all be doing as marketers. We all exist to prove the value that our marketing is driving. And if we're not doing that, there's almost no point in us running the marketing because we don't know what it's delivering back. And if you don't have all of the data in one place and you're not able to see all of that and see that full picture of what is going on, you're ultimately not able to prove the impact you are having for our clients, our brands, and our businesses. So, saying all of that, what is the future of effective media planning and strategy? And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this is because how you work with data makes a massive difference to your commercial performance. So it's another chart from Magic Numbers. But this is what happens when you're kind of in this short-term mindset. So you're likely being reactive to data, you're kind of changing decisions on the fly based on the data that you're seeing when you're seeing it. So you drive a bit of revenue, you drive a bit of profit, right? No one's going to kind of complain that you're driving this sort of thing for your activity. However, when you reverse this and you actually think about it from the kind of after point of view, where you've got your strategy, you set it up, you stick to it, and you use the data to check. So you check whether you're kind of on the right track with what you're doing. You drive 2 times more revenue and 8 times more profit. So it's significantly more effective for you to kind of set up your strategy and then use the data to check. And I'm going to go through a few examples of how you can do that. So the next few slides, or the solutions, are a bit of a sweet shop. They're a bit of a pick and mix. I've kind of just given you everything that I think could work if you have any of these challenges. You might like some, you might hate some, you might have tried some, you might have never thought of trying others. Hopefully there's something there. The solutions aren't linear, so it's not like do this, then do this, then do this. You can kind of pull from it as you want to. And it's going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour. So if there's anything you want to know more about, come and grab me or send me a message and we can chat. So the first is try to focus on your macro level KPIs. So obviously, it's really important to have some sort of central dashboard which pulls as much data as it can into one place. But where this can be really powerful is when you also start to pull in your kind of business data. So if your client is focused on footfall, or they're focused on online sales, or they're focused on getting people in store for store visits, bring this in. Because then you've got all of your channel data, which you've probably already got in a central dashboard somewhere. But then you can then do a really simple visualization of kind of media spend against footfall or against online sales. And it can help you to start to untangle what impact your media is having. Where possible, KPIs should be set and standardized. And there's 2 reasons for this. The first is because you ultimately need to know what you're holding your channel accountable to. Otherwise, there's kind of no point in doing it because you don't know what that measure of success looks like. But also, secondly, it means that if you're comparing across channel, then you are more likely to be comparing apples with apples rather than apples with oranges. And by this, I don't mean that your KPIs for every channel should be the same, because every channel works differently and every channel will contribute differently. But by bucketing those together into kind of the job that each channel is doing, you can then hold it accountable against those KPIs. However, these KPIs should be set up for the short term and the long term. So although I've talked about the fact that short-termism is a bit of a challenge in the industry at the moment, there is kind of no getting away from it because of the economy that we're in. And so you need those short-term metrics. You need the things that tell you that the thing that you're doing is working in the short term, because that's ultimately what our clients, brands and businesses are looking for right now. However, we know that some channels, some tactics work more in the long term. And it's really difficult to get our clients and our brands and our businesses to buy into that, because actually we're promising them something later down the line which we don't know is going to happen right now. And so what you can do is you can kind of set up short-term indicators, which suggests that that thing is working in the short term, but it's going to drive kind of a different metric in the long term. If you want examples of that, come and find me. But it means you can provide insight into the things that are working without having that ultimate long-term KPI. Obviously, it would be really remiss of me to stand here and not say that attribution modeling can help bridge the gap, because it can. There are lots of ways that kind of more data-driven attribution can help us to figure out the impact of each of those channels. But better yet, invest in econometrics. And some of you are going to think I'm mad for standing up here and saying that in the current economy that we're in, because how are you getting your clients to sign off like 50 grand econometrics projects? But there's loads of really entry ways that you can do it. You can do things like a diminishing return analysis, all the way up to full funnel modeling if you've got the budget for it. There's loads of things that you can do to ultimately prove the impacts that your marketing is having. You just need to get a decent data analyst. Make sure that you're telling a story with the data that you have. Like, we're all here because we're data nerds, right? Everyone loves a bit of data. And I often think we're really guilty of putting all of the data up and not necessarily always showing the impact or kind of the core thing that we want people to take away. So ultimately, don't let the data get in the way of you telling a good story. We are selling every day to our clients, to brands, to businesses, to get them to invest in marketing. And the only way you do that is if you're telling a compelling story within that. Obviously, make sure you adopt an experimentation mindset. When you have less data, it actually almost gives you more permission to do more testing, to gather more of that data that you might need. You just need to be really clear on what you're testing for. Don't just kind of test for the sake of it. Make sure you've got a strategy set up for that so that you know what you're testing and you know what you're going to do with that data after you've done it. Remember to consider the impact of creative. I know for a lot of us, we won't have control over the creative. It might just be provided or shared with us. But actually, the latest kind of IPA data and their report on compound creativity kind of supports how important creative is as a multiplier in marketing performance. So again, make sure you're kind of considering this, you're bringing it into your data where you've got it so that, again, you can see that fuller picture and then making recommendations if that's possible. Don't be afraid of some creative maths. I was a bit nervous about putting this. Okay. Don't be afraid of some creative maths. And I don't mean creative by fudging it or making up the numbers. Please don't do that. That's not what I'm recommending. However, we don't always have all of the information, right? We have some data, but not others. But there is a whole industry out there of information. So see what you can source from reports, white papers, academia. And what you can do is you can create a really tool, Excel modeler tool, where you can plug in what you know, plug in what you don't with kind of the benchmark figures that you've got. And then you have this little interactive tool that clients can play with where you can go, okay, if this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. It kind of gives you that data driven without you necessarily giving one set answer based on that. Obviously, think about where these guys can help. AI and machine learning can do a lot. They can do lots to make you more efficient and more effective in what it is that you're doing. I mentioned it at the start, and it was quite a flippant comment about the fact that AI is going to take our jobs. I actually think it's the people who can prompt and leverage AI that are going to take our jobs. So make sure we're using it to kind of be smarter and more effective in what we're doing. But don't forget about the importance of human nuance. Kind of AI can only take us so far. And we know the brands, the businesses, the clients that we're working on at a really deep level. Kind of we know what makes humans tick because we are all humans. So we know how that works and how we can relate to people. So make sure that you are layering that intelligence on top of anything from AI. And the kind of final solution from me is to bring it into your entire end-to-end process. So when we talk about kind of data and measurement and reporting, people often think it just exists right at the end. So you run your activity, you collect all of your data, you pull it all together, and then you'll visualize it, you'll report back on what success looks like, you do a bit of PCA or a QBR, jobs are good and clients are happy. But actually, it can't just exist at the end. You ultimately have to set up your KPIs and your kind of metrics that you are going to measure before you even consider running any activity, which needs to be linked back to the business objectives that you are trying to achieve for your client. And what that means is that, one, it's linked back to those objectives, but it also means that you can then hold those channels accountable. So when you inevitably run that activity, you know what success looks like, and you can then regroup on that at the end. So what are the key takeaways? You've probably heard loads already. You are going to hear loads. I've tried to kind of condense it into 3 things that if you remember, maybe take these 3 things away. The first is try not to be afraid. Like, it's okay if you don't have all the data and you can't beautifully show exactly what it is that you want to show because you are missing something. Like, we have a lot of data. You can pull that together with data that we don't know, and that can work really effectively to tell a compelling story for clients, brands, and businesses. Remember the bigger picture. It's really easy to get bogged down in like the specific metrics that we are reporting on day in, day out. But our brands, our businesses, and our clients are all being asked about those bigger metrics of like footfall, online sales, visits, like that ultimate thing that they are reporting back to the board on. So make sure that all of your metrics are kind of teeing back up into those business objectives overall. And ultimately find the right blend for you. Like, this was a bit of a pick and mix. So if you've got the data, use it. If you don't, you don't. Like, we're not going to go from not thinking about effectiveness to effectiveness overnight. It's a really long journey. But actually, if we can make these small steps to bringing the data together, then we'll ultimately be planning more effective campaigns. Thank you very much. Reach out if you need anything, or I'll be down here afterwards.